Let's do some podcast shit.
Sure.
Start the game already!
That glass doesn't look very clean from here.
Well, it's got that funny soap film from like dishwashery things. It's also possible this isn't my first glass.
Hmm. Dishwashers aren't supposed to do that.
It's an old
I guess
dishwasher.
you're probably on well water up there too, right?
Nope, town water.
No?
Well water is actually cleaner than town water. It's kind of funny.
Depends on the well.
Well, it's all sand up here. So
Yeah.
at our last house, our well was, I don't know, 10 feet from what they called a septic tank, which was actually just a hole in the ground with some boards on top. And the water was tested literally better than town water
Yeah.
without the chlorine. So it's okay. So what are you drinking tonight?
Ooh, what am I drinking? Cabana Coast. It is a vodka, ginger, lime, original mule.
Yes, mules are good. I have Smoking Loon Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm going high class tonight, but I mean it is also Chateau Screw Top, so I don't know. It's good. It's good. It's good wine.
So
Well,
what's new,
I
man?
think it's good wine. Not a ton. I nearly had a fight with a good friend over some world building shit last week, as we discovered that our creative processes are completely and utterly different.
Well,
Uh,
do we want to get right into that?
well, I think I should probably talk about deep frying a turkey first.
You absolutely should.
So we deep fried a turkey. It's not our first turkey. I actually have two deep fryers because typically when we deep fry a turkey, we have one for turkey and one for French fries and various other things that we're like, hey, I wonder what this is like deep fried.
Mm-hmm.
This time it was just the turkey. We did a turkey and then a few fries after.
Like a big outdoor fryer kind of thing?
Yep. I set it up in the garage. Don't try this at home. It's the wrong way to do it. It's not safe. You might burn your house down. And I only almost burnt my house down. I lost my grip on the fries as I was dipping them, and they were just a little bit too wet. So I had a little bit of spillage over the sides. Not YouTube worthy. Not like an explosion of foam coming over the top. Just a few little dribbles, and I was like, oh, it's coming over the side. Turn off the propane. Wait for it to settle down. All right, light it up again. No big deal.
I haven't had
Um,
deep fried turkey in like 20 years, maybe 25. It's been a
wow.
long time.
We didn't even try it until 5 or 6 years ago, and it's delicious. It's
It is
great.
one of the best ways to do turkey.
And you can make some fantastic gravy with the leftover turkey bits. Works out really well. The secret, though, is that you need to deep fry things in tallow.
I didn't get enough turkey this year.
What?
Well, it was funny the way it worked out. We were up at the in-laws, and Tanya and I bought the turkey this year because they normally go with like a utility turkey, like they which is fine. Like you do it right. Like I'll go utility turkey all day if I'm like brining it and
Yeah.
maybe spatchcocking it or whatever. But they're pretty old school. It's
Spatchcock.
in the oven stuffed for like 5 hours, and then like immediately out of the oven without resting, they're starting to carve it. So at least I thought maybe we can get a little bit better turkey, and it might turn out pretty decent, and it did. They ended up doing an entire second turkey because they wanted everybody to have leftovers. And Tanya's sisters were there with spouses and kids, but the second turkey barely got touched, and we are like, yeah, we'll get some leftovers. Tanya packed some up. I love you, Tanya.
Left them in the
But
fridge.
no, she did. She grabbed enough for about 2.5 sandwiches.
Oh, that's not enough.
No, which
You
I
sh-
know she was trying to share, but I was thinking about trying to get out this week to find some turkey on sale.
yeah,
Uh,
should have. Should exist, right?
For the non-Canadians, it was Canadian Thanksgiving this past weekend, or real Thanksgiving.
Well, yeah. I mean, we do it first, so obviously we're right. But here's the thing, right? Like, honestly, if you're listening to this anywhere in the world where you either don't celebrate Thanksgiving or you're an American and you celebrate in what, like 3 weeks or something, do both. Dude, deep fry 2 turkeys. Why limit yourself to one Thanksgiving? Do both.
Well, I know in the US they celebrate Columbus Day generally on the same weekend.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, is there Columbus Day food? Like, do they do
I don't know. It's a long weekend.
something?
I don't know.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe they
interested.
do. Maybe they do like cheeseburgers and fries and celebrate like Columbo Day. That's a holiday I could get behind. I've gathered you all here today to something cheeseburger and fries. I don't know. Solve the mystery. The butler did it. Ah,
Anything special on the weekend besides?
nope. Didn't go anywhere. Didn't do anything. Oh, we spent the week trying to figure out how to get a blood test out of my cat. Uh, my cat, Kevin, is the most nervous feline on the face of the planet. It's funny because he'll act tough until he has to like walk through a door or go somewhere or like come near a stranger, and then suddenly he's like the very image of a scaredy cat. Well, Cindy took him to the vet and he freaked out. Like you know those videos you see on the internet of like here's a cat freaking out and here's like a 400-pound muscle dude who's like I can't handle this cat. Well,
Hmm.
he pulled one of those, and he was fine, literally on the floor in the room. As soon as they picked him up and put him on the table, it was like, nope, not having this. So she brought him home with some kitty Valium, and it was strong enough that he was literally having trouble walking. Like he was literally like stumbling from side to side. She took him back, freaked out again. So she brought him home with some even stronger stuff. So she put that into him yesterday morning. They got the blood out of him. He needs to have some dental surgery. He's got a couple of rotten teeth they need to pull. But this was yesterday morning, and just about now he's almost recovered from the what do you call him? It's like Ativan or Valium or
Hmm.
whatever. And he was just like for the longest time he was laying down like, and he should have just been trying to sleep it off, and he was just like just staring into space. It's like, dude, just put your head down and go to sleep. Nope, too much work.
We have a similar problem with our dog, Plot Hound. She is aggressive isn't the right word because she's a sweetheart, but there's just some things you just can't do. And she will literally bite your arm off if you try. She's not vicious. Like she would never go out of her way unless she felt personally threatened to bite or snap at you. But one of those things is clipping her nails. Just
Oh,
can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. So it's in like the vet's offering, yeah, we can do it when you bring her in. And we're like, ha, good luck with that. And they try, and she almost assaults them. And then it was, well, we're gonna have to give her some shots. So we'll have to sedate her. Okay, well, how's that gonna work? Well, you bring her in, we'll give her a shot. You want to give her a shot to give her a shot. They couldn't get that done, so then it was ooh, here's a meatball thing that she can have when she comes in. That'll
nope,
settle her down and we can do it. No.
nope.
Then it's like, here's this like industrial strength horse tranquilizer sedative that you can feed
Yep.
your dog before bringing her in. And nope.
Yeah.
Like she should not have been conscious, never mind have the ability to
Mhm.
like Tasmanian devil. So it's a chore. Like I try and get her out and walk her and get her on some rough terrain just to wear the claws down. My next step is building a hammock with holes in it that I can just like get her into it because we can get her into a harness to walk her. and just yoink so that she's basically in a tube that's kind of got her wrapped up like a taco that I
Yep.
can then just hang off a hook. And it's big enough that she can't get her head down and her feet are going to be dangling. I'll probably only be able to do it once, but that's basically the next step.
Oh my God. Oh, aren't pets
She
wonderful?
she is a special sausage, and she's not a huge dog. Like, she's a medium-sized dog, but she's a plot hound, which, imagine a pit bull, longer snoot, but if you just took like 4 inches out of the middle of the pit bull, like literally slice it lengthwise a couple of times, take the middle section out and put it back together. She doesn't have the wide head of a pit bull, but all the musculature. Like, she is a sack of loose skin, muscles, and teeth.
Lots of fun to try and handle then, I'm sure.
Oh, she is. She's a horse, and not, like I say, not big in stature, but when she wants to go somewhere or do something, you follow, right? you, you
try
don't have a
try and keep
choice.
up. Uh, all right. So I guess we need to talk about um,
Our
the
friendship almost ended.
yeah, the nerd fight that was actually a fight.
Before I turn you loose on this, I just want to clarify from my perspective, frustration maybe, but it wasn't a fight. Like, at
No,
no point was
agreed.
I like, fucking guy. He's being a
No.
complete dick. It's just it's interesting.
Yeah.
So for context, if you haven't listened to 2 episodes ago, Telson is building a tabletop game campaign setting, and he asked me to help. Very, very early stages of development. So it's like, help me with some seed stuff. And you would think the two of us, we've been friends for 20,
Yeah. 20 some,
24 years now, basically.
give or take. Yeah.
Very similar common interests, generally similar hobbies. I would go so far as to say similar minds, similar intellects.
Yeah.
You would have thought this would have been easy.
I'm not sure about easy, but I certainly wasn't expecting as much. It's a little bit like billiard balls caroming off of each other, as it's like we should be going in the same direction. Why are we not going in the same direction? Why are you going over there? Right? And I think honestly, it just comes down to like communication. Um,
Hmm.
I mentioned too that I wanted to like. There's a couple of things that I think I communicated really poorly at the beginning. Because really what I was looking for, honest to goodness, was just like a couple of random thoughts to give me something to grow stuff out of. I do still see that there's some possibility of us developing different parts of the world. Uh, like imagine, for example, that I was doing the Sword Coast and you were doing, I don't know, whatever the hell is the way south of
Well,
the Sword Coast.
I think we eventually kind of met in the middle a little bit here. Like,
I think so.
after communication kind of happened,
Yeah.
and we met each other in the middle. It worked. Um, what became evident though to me immediately is just how drastically different
Oh,
your approach to this is.
oh,
Like,
it's
when I
massively
think of,
different.
yeah, like when I think of world building, I don't think of throwing darts to see what sticks, right? Just random darts, like different colors from different sets that have nothing to do with each other. And oh wait, there's a paper airplane. Oh, that one stuck too. And from my perspective, that very much seemed to be what you were asking me to do. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about anything that fits, just throw ideas at me. And it was like, well, what am I, just rubbing words together then? And
Yes.
really, that's what it felt like. And I don't function that way. It's
And that became apparent really rapidly. This is a funny thing because this causes me issues at work too because what I do is like design things. I design like tools and various
Mhm.
things like that. And there are two generally accepted ways of doing things in like 3D modeling design type stuff. There's from the top down, where you start with like a general concept of what it is, and then you say, all right, what parts do I need? And then you start designing those parts.
Mhm.
And then there's the other one, which is, what parts do I have? All right, how am I going to put those together? And you start with all of your parts and then you assemble them like Lego. Um, I start from the middle out, and then I start attacking it from random directions whenever I get stuck. And it's a very effective way for me to do it,
Mhm.
but it is an absolute nightmare for anyone to try and follow me or to try and help me. And that's kind of where we're at here as well. One of the things that I noticed about the way that you were approaching it, it was very much a like, I need to gather all of the inputs to figure out what the world looks like, right? Or at least that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and again, we're communicating just chat messages on Discord, so, like, there's a whole lot of reading between the lines and sort of misinterpretation, I'm sure, that's happening.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
but my approach is sort of an organic kind of like, you're asking for seeds, but the seeds got to come from a seed. So what is the seed of this world that these seeds are going to grow in, so that I can make, I don't need to flesh out a lot of detail, but just, to me, if I'm world building, the world needs to kind of form from common connection, right? Like, it's a spider web
Yeah.
in some cases. Like, yours is very much the primordial, like, literal world building, where
Yeah.
it's like random pieces of space and debris and asteroids and miscellaneous, and like a protoplanetary disk orbiting a young star mashing together. But instead
Sometimes
of,
things.
like, there's a level of differentiation in materials and stuff that happens in a protoplanetary disk, but you're like, fuck differentiation.
Nope.
Like, literally, it would be like being in a sensory deprivation chamber. And then, like, every time an image or idea popped into your head, write it down, throw it away, and start fresh. And then something else happens. And again, I want to be clear to everybody here, because I'm trying not to be a dick about this, because there's nothing to be a dick about.
Nope.
There's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just, to me, it was the experience of finding out that, like, we have such different approaches to
Oh,
ultimately get to the same place. Because it's funny, like, we both do this stuff. We've both run
yeah.
games. We've both imagined worlds in our head, and often that finish line for that stuff is very similar. We'll land in a very similar place eventually, but the route to getting there was just so drastically
Oh, it's
different.
massively different. One of the things that I kind of wanted to point out, or at least vocalize, because it seems like this is one of those things where when you do something, especially if you're good at it, it seems so incredibly obvious that it's really, really hard to explain how you do it.
Mhm.
And one of the things, like the way that I approach this more than anything, and I probably should have said this up front, is that uh, there's two things that I really want to cover here. The one is that what I'm looking at, or what I want, how I want to create, is what do the characters that I'm envisioning starting this thing see?
Mhm.
I don't care why. I don't care. Like, just because there's only so much room. Unfortunately, like, there's only so much space in my head, and I can't hold on to all of the stuff. I made a comment at some point. I think it was on Discord, that I was really impressed with your memory, because I don't retain stuff. I have thoughts. If I don't write them down, they're gone. Sometimes they come back when someone reminds me. One of the things that I found really valuable, actually, about our original discussion about this, was some of the questions that you asked basically forced me to make decisions about stuff, and that was really valuable, because a lot of times it's like I don't think about trade, I don't think about language, I don't think about currency. Like, that's just it just exists. It's there, right?
Mhm.
But it is one of the things that needs to be actually uh, discussed, written down, solidified, at least a little bit. The other thing that I wanted to say is that sort of one of my major motivating factors for how this world setting, whatever, popped into my brain was, in tabletop RPGs, what do you do? and you have social interactions.
Mhm,
Um, you do exploration, and you go into dungeons and punch monsters and take their stuff.
mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
standard pillars.
Standard pillars, and I'm like, okay, right, but like, how many dungeons do you know about? Like, if you had to go out and go adventuring in dungeons right now, how far would you have to walk before you found one? Right? And they just like it's not a really common thing to happen. So it's like, okay, so what's the excuse for why all these things exist?
Mhm,
And I came up with a sort of a, hey, there's all of these collapsed civilizations, and there used to be really huge cities and things and stuff all over the place, and it's not there anymore. But there's these ruins that have now become dungeons, and that's the excuse for them. One of the things we talked about as well. Sorry, as things pop into my head, I basically have to say them or I'll forget them. One of the things that we talked about was that it very much seems like there's a sort of control or like Big Brother type of thing controlling everything. And I think that I've sort of waffled on that a little bit because that was sort of in the back of my brain that, yeah, it was like Ringworld or there was another one that was big like that. But basically, the Truman Show.
now
Um,
for some context, because this really came out in the answers I was getting to some of the questions that I was asking after we recorded last time. Once I finally pried some detail out of you, where you're just like, fine, I'm going to write some stuff down and share it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is all fantastic. I wish you'd have told this 2 days ago, right?
I
I
didn't
can run
know
with
it
all
two
the
days ago. I literally made it up as I was writing it down.
perfect, perfect. But you started saying things like before, you mentioned that there was, ruins built on top of ruins. So there was this implication that there'd been previous civilizations, and we'd sort of established that there was a one particular significant, at least, technological civilization in the past. And the initial connection that I made was that, like, if there's influence and stuff maybe happening to this civilization, it was the result of what that civilization had done. But the details that I'd received from you just, in the past few days led me to believe that, well, no, they were just a part of this cycle that's happening here of like civilizational development and extinction that maybe just progressed further than most of the other ones, but they're probably gone for the same reasons, because you talked about things like population centers would hit a certain population. You picked an arbitrary number like 500, and then a plague would come and kill them off. Like,
Right.
it was just very obvious things that came across as, oh, these are controls. These people are living
Yes.
inside of a science experiment.
Yeah.
The science experiment periodically resets itself.
Yep.
And that was sort of a like a light bulb for me that, oh, this other civilization that you've been talking about was, they weren't the creators either. They lived in this same system.
Yeah. Yep. So one of the I like I say, I waffled on that idea a little bit because on the one hand, like, yeah, okay, but at the same time, I do want a little bit more. One of the things I want to get away from, kind of, and more to challenge myself than anything else, is the idea that the gods walk the earth, right? I want that to be very much a nobody knows. So rather than that kind of reset mechanic, instead, because I've talked about how like random magical events happen, and monsters basically pop out of like gates or whatever, kaiju style, Stargate type thing. Only the gates don't exist until boop, a gate popped into existence, and hey, now there's monsters coming through it. Um, is that in that if you think about how sort of waves propagate in a pond, right?
Mhm,
Imagine that whatever these forces are that are causing these things to happen are like waves, but they're like standing waves. And in some places, there are little pockets of calm,
mhm,
right, where that stuff doesn't happen. And our starting location, Bridgetown, exists in one of those. And the ruins of the town just across the river used to be Bridgetown, and then the standing wave that caused that safe spot moved, right? And that's kind of the ongoing mechanic that causes the, well, this is This is how many people we can support in the, safe spaces that we've got. And then eventually, like half of us will be wiped out again in 10 years or whatever it is, and it's
Hmm.
all completely and utterly random. Or maybe not. TBD in the future at some point, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, very, very different because there was a lot of details that you were sort of prizing out, like what does trade look like? Like where are these people? What kind of travel do they do? What's their technology level? How many languages do they speak? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
And I guess maybe the way I was wording those questions sound like I was asking a lot of detail, where like I'm looking for the basic things like, does money exist? Yes or no?
Yeah,
You know,
kinda.
because you were asking you were asking me questions or looking for me to do things like establish folklore. These stories of myth, not necessarily mythical, but heroes from the past, your Paul Bunyans, your stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my way of approaching that and how I think about it is, well, these things, these stories that people create are natural extensions of the things they either value or fear.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a feel for, what does a person in this world value or fear? What is their basic shit, their day-to-day stuff
Yep.
like? Do they have machines, or are they walking with horses? Do they talk to neighboring communities, or do they not? What, those sorts of things, because that will inform the stories that they tell and the fictions that they create for themselves, right?
It's a funny kind of a thing because it very much works out to be almost like the chicken and the egg, right?
Hmm.
Like which came first? Because they're both absolutely required. Because you're right, like all of the questions that you're asking are questions that need to be answered. Um, I would like to say though that it's kind of funny because the very beginning of that episode, you're like, "Oh, I'm coming into this cold. Like this is a complete surprise to me," and I'm like, "Man, I don't have that much more preparation than you do." Because I had this literally was like one morning I woke up and I was lying in bed just trying to convince myself to get up. And I thought, huh, I wonder if like this would be a cool place to start an adventure. And that's more or less as much preparation as I had, and everything else, like everything I told you during that episode was more or less improv.
Then the whole thing was more collaborative than we thought.
Yeah, it really was. And like the nuggets that you wrote down, like what I was kind of looking for was more a series of even just names, right? Like I'm looking for like Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. I don't know what that means. I literally just need some words to rub together so that I can start a fire in my brain and create something out of that. Um, but it seems like really what we probably how we should probably approach this is that you lay the groundwork and I come in with the crazy shit that goes on top and maybe slides off.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm happy with where we got to. I really am. So
So I have some more questions for you. I
shoot.
promise this isn't going to start a fight. I'm curious now.
I would like to I would like to come back with a clarification that I never thought we were fighting either.
No,
There
no,
was a
no,
little,
no. It
but there
was
was
it
a
was a
little.
little bit of friction, is all it was, and it
It
was
was just
it was
like
evident. We were like,
it was.
it was like we were speaking two different languages for a while
Yeah.
and having a hard time understanding each other. And the more we specific we got with what we were saying, like the stronger our accents got or something. So it was even just harder to understand each other. It was
Oh
comical
my.
looking back on it,
Oh yeah, like we were talking past each other so hard it was just hilarious. Yeah.
but
It's
it's
like
all good.
it would be like playing pool and actually like missing the rail. It's like like I tried to I tried to do the break and actually just jump the ball right off the table. And you were like, I don't know how to play this game. This is
And
not the
I'm
game you
playing
said we were
bumper
playing.
pool, like I'm playing bumper pool in the next room, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like and not only that, but then when you start asking questions, it turns out I've been bowling the whole time.
But it really does make me think about, like, I've taken for granted creative collaboration at this level, and like I'm in a fairly creative industry, and I have to collaborate with everybody around me, but very rarely are we collaborating specifically on the same things. Like, the stuff that we work on gets broken down into chunks, and this is your chunk, this is my chunk. They have to fit together, so there has to be a plan. But when you're talking about things like world building, you're talking about like actual creation, not just creativity.
Yeah.
And like I say, I was pretty surprised that we were completely different wavelengths on how this happened. And I think we could still make something work. Like I'm not bailing
Yeah.
here. I found this first half week or so
It was a
an
little,
interesting and eye-opening experience.
yeah. I mean, what's like any relationship, you have to figure out like what is the language you're communicating in.
Yeah. But it does make me really appreciate those that do collaborate at this level of creation. Like I think people that write books, like
Oh
some,
my,
especially
Hickman and
when you're
Weiss.
world, yeah, where you're not just writing an autobiography or whatever. You're not ghostwriting shit. Like you're creating worlds
There's
in
no
your head.
facts. You're making it up.
You're
Yeah.
starting with a blank slate, like what we've been trying to do, and they get to the point where they're on the same page about everything. And I'm sure there's lots of disagreements and stuff that happens, but at the end of the day they create so much that's cohesive. And like initially I would have thought, oh well, similar people, similar interests, they should be able to figure it out pretty easily. It's like half the work because there's two of them. And the reality is I wonder if it's more work for both of them because there's two involved.
I think so, but I have this theory, and it's I mean it's a very, I wouldn't even call it a theory. It's not even a hypothesis. It's more of a wild ass guess. I think that especially in creative endeavors, disagreement actually makes for a stronger final result.
Oh, I completely agree. And,
Because
and the only analog I really have for this is like growing up as a teenager. Like I played in bands, right? And we would try and write some of our own music. This is a long, long, long time ago. So don't worry, this bard thing's probably going to go very, very badly for me. But, having multiple people trying to contribute to writing a song versus somebody writing it and telling everybody else in the band, okay, this is what you're playing.
yeah, it's tough. It's really, really difficult. I've had that experience like briefly one time, and I realized I don't really want to do this. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, some of that, for me at least, in the music area, comes down to talent. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
not good enough to sit down with somebody and go, oh, okay, you're doing that, I'll do this. It's like I gotta spend a whole lot of time figuring out my bit. I can't do that around your bit. So anyway, yeah, I do think that we can probably make something work out of this. I don't know if it'll be, I think that it will be less painful going forward.
Oh, for sure. And certainly the once we've established more and more of a foundation, like that
Yeah,
makes things easier for me.
yeah,
Like it's this blank slate-ish stage that I think is probably the most trying. So
yeah.
back to my questions then.
Shoot.
You're talking about starting up a our group
Yep,
running some stuff in November.
I am.
Is it your intention to run something in this setting?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that will come out of that is that it will through the actions of the players flush out
Mhm.
the world a little bit. I'm hoping to start an in-person group sort of around the same time in the same setting, starting from the same place, similar to what you did with us in your Tuesday group.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that having sort of two groups of people going through it and probably approaching things differently will flush out a few things, and then there can be some cross pollination.
Okay. So based on what you know now, because you're again sort of focused on the what do the players see when the game starts, what would your session zero look like? And what would you like to come out of your session one?
Give me just 1 second here, and I will, because I actually wrote something down the other day, which is a major step for me in any one of these things. Session zero. Okay, so the opening blurb is: the world is a strange and unwelcoming place. Strange ruins protrude from the ground, remnants of long forgotten civilizations. Some look as though they fell from the sky, some are crumbling, and some look as though they have never aged at all. The architecture is strange and unfamiliar, and some of the structures hum with a faint and disturbing sound, or glow with a strange light at odd times. But there are a few places that provide welcome respite from the cold strangeness of the world. Bridgetown is such a place. You grew up here, and it's familiar. It's home. And then I have like a big old description of Bridgetown, which I won't read because that's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I sort of describe, the town and the surrounding area in very vague detail, with a big old poke that you should probably have a look at the South Barrow, because that's where I'm hoping everybody goes first.
Okay.
I still, I the that's sort of the world introduction ish. And then sort of for the players themselves, I think we need to have a discussion with the group to figure
Mhm.
out. And there's a potential that we're introducing a new player as well. Cindy met somebody, and he's like, "Oh, I'd really like to play." So I'm like, "Okay, ask the group if
We'll try
everybody's
it out.
cool with it. We'll give them a tryout." And then it's like, what do you guys expect from play? And that kind of informs like, what do I prepare? How do I go
Mhm.
forward from here?
Question number 2. Are you also going to try and run those games using a custom system of your own design, or are you going to look at 5e?
I think with our online group, I'm going to do fifth edition, just because it's familiar to people.
Mhm.
It's a whole lot easier than trying to, hey, I'm developing a system and it's going to be changing from week to week, and also we're going to be doing it online where I want things to be like, click a button and do a thing. Yeah, let's lean on some existing architecture for that, and I'll do my homebrew system in person where I can say, no, 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 okay, that doesn't work. Let's try a different way. But I still have to run that past that group too and see if they're interested. So, homebrew system might just be a thing that exists in an Excel spreadsheet and never goes anywhere.
Hmm.
Next
I'm
question.
excited. Um, no, I guess I mean, I don't wanna peek behind the curtains too much, and this is funny because 'cause I'm sort of peeking behind the curtains with the creation of this world and stuff, but also remembering that I'm gonna be a player. I want to, save a certain opportunity for discovery there.
There should be an awful lot of that. I mean, one of the sort of things, because you're starting out at a place where you grew up, like you should be familiar with the surrounding area. Like there's good, like here's a map of the stuff that like you've walked across the bridge because that's something that kids would do, in their teen years, is they're like, hey man, I want to go and see what's over the next hill. And then like, holy crap, it's scary over the next hill. I'm coming home again. Until at some point, I don't, maybe hop on a boat and head down the river. I don't know.
So do I get to be the pirate space cat alien that just showed up and has nothing to do with this world?
If you want to, sure. I'll give you all kinds of things to. Yeah, that was such a strange concept, and I was so in love with it that I'm like, I can you shoehorn this in, man? Because I really think that it's awesome.
You know what? I had all sorts of ideas for where that could go, and maybe we'll circle back to it one day.
That would
Um,
be cool. I
challenge
was enjoying.
of playing as adults, man, is just the
Oh yeah,
consistency, right? Like
yeah.
that style of campaign game just
You
warrants a
got to.
certain consistency.
Yeah, you've got to. I think for us the best thing is going to be to split it up into chunks, and then it's like, okay, well this adventure is over, and if you'd like to continue using the same characters, great. And if not, then we'll find some other way. Start something
S-
different.
So I assume you're not looking at running virtual tabletop then?
Some kind of something. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna try and learn how to use Foundry, or if I'm just gonna upload maps to Roll20 and say this is where you are. Because I don't really want to do any fancy macro-y stuff where it's like, oh look, you see lightning and here's weird lighting maps. It's here's a picture of a
Mhm.
mountain. That's what you're going to be looking at while we're doing the traveling around and talking to people thing. Maybe I'll show you a picture of the person you're talking to. Um, and oh, hey, you're in combat. Here's what the battle map looks like. That's my thought. Give us somewhere to roll dice together. We could probably do the whole thing honestly, Discord and just rolling dice. But it's nice to have a common view of any kind of combat type encounter.
Mhm.
I think anyway.
Playing in this world certainly encourages pulling away from a lot of like the really expansive 5e options if you're going to use 5e. It would almost be interesting to try and just play this using SRD stuff.
Yeah. There's definitely going to be an awful lot of custom monsters.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm just thinking from like character options, right? Like you don't need,
I would
you know.
this for the opening one. I'm going to be assigning pre-made characters. Um, which reminds me, I need to write those down because I had an idea, and I think everyone is going to be equally upset. Which will be funny for like 3 or 4 sessions. Then it'll be like, all right, like carry on if you want, and if not, then just like make up another character, and it's fine. I think though that we'll probably, at least for the first little bit, while we're starting to explore the world, it'll be limited to human and half elf. No real limits on classes, but obviously, like magic is illegal and also very, very socially taboo. So if you're gonna play a wizard, you're a very weak fighter. While you're in public.
Mhm. All right. Well, moving on, we did have another table talk topic that you brought up, which was the holiday themed one shots. Now, we touched on this briefly last week, 2 sessions ago. I was
Something like that.
mentioning that I was considering running a Halloween one shot, but we really didn't get into any detail. And I think I'd asked if you'd done like seasonal one shots like this, and you mentioned maybe doing a Christmas one. So your question was good idea or abomination of nature? Why do you ask
I
that?
Well, here's the thing: is that I'm thinking, like, there's. I was thinking about how many parallels there are between what we do with role playing, especially on the tabletop, and TV sitcoms, that kind of thing, right? Because it's a similar sort of thing where you have very much episodes, and this episode, even though it's maybe a part of the ongoing story, it's very episodic in nature. And there have been, in my experience, quite a few. Uh, the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, at least in the first 10 seasons or so, comes to mind as something that's really successful. As here's a holiday themed thing that's maybe outside of the continuity, but still sort of within it. In the context of being a story within the story. And I thought to myself, like I was thinking, it can be done well, right? We've seen it done well. And I'm absolutely certain it can be done badly. And I thought it might be interesting to sort of, uh, workshop how can it go wrong? Like what could you do in a holiday themed one shot that would just be bad for everyone involved or anyone involved, I guess. I thought it might be a funny thing. It might just be one of those topics where I ask a question. It's like, yeah, could go bad. Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, uh, I think it's going to depend on one sort of key thing. Are you running a one shot that is like an isolated one shot, or are you doing a seasonal adventure with players and characters that are in an established campaign?
I think both
Um,
could work.
oh, I definitely think both could work, but it probably changes the what could go wrong. Um, there's a lot of overlap, like let's say between Halloween. since it's coming up. There's a lot of overlap between D&D normal shit and Halloween, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the last thing you probably want to do is be in the middle of, say, a Curse of Strahd campaign and then throw the haunted house from that module at them and call it the Halloween thing, because it's just more of the same.
Yeah. Although, you know what? Doing the Death House from Curse of Strahd in another campaign as a Halloween episode.
But again, it would depend. Maybe, you're just adding a little more gothic horror tone to something. But if you're already dealing with monsters of the week as part of your
Yeah.
you know your MO for how you're playing the game anyway, I think just doing more of that and shifting the tone's probably the mistake. Instead, it's probably worth making your Halloween one shot more of a social adventure. The masquerade party gone wrong, like Scooby Doo it up a little bit or something, but
Yeah. Scooby Doo would be a really great way to
you
do
know,
that. I was thinking too, you could shift the tone a whole bunch. Like if you were going to do Halloween while you were doing Curse of Strahd, you would have to do uh, like it's something similar, like where it's either it's the same characters out of the setting in a silly Halloween setting. It would be really amusing actually to do Curse of Strahd where all of the monsters have dressed up as silly monsters,
mhm.
right? Where you've got zombies dressed up as pirates and vampires dressed up as cowboys.
Now, Curse of Strahd as a module has a perfect thing that I think I would latch onto, and that's the dinner invite, right? The invitation that you
Yeah,
receive from
yeah.
Strahd to actually come to Ravenloft and hang out. Like turning that into sort of the equivalent of like a middle school or high school
Oh my,
Halloween dance kind of
oh
thing,
my,
like
oh my!
with
With
that
spiked
vibe, but
punch.
you take all of the characters, the sidekicks, the Strahd sort of juice, and force them into the uncomfortable position where they're having to entertain at this party, or like enjoy themselves at Strahd's command, while doing something that is very much not let's go hit a monster until it dies.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things where, like, I've asked the question, and halfway through asking the question, I've realized the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
Because it very much depends on your group, right? Like if you throw this at a group who's interested in ad libbing, in doing bits, in like having little comedy sort of interludes and figuring out one-liners and throwing out puns and improvising stuff, they'd probably eat it up and think it was hilarious.
hmm And that's the way you'd have to go. Like, if you weren't running Curse of Strahd, then you can, if you're going to do it as a one shot, like just completely isolated,
Yep,
like that's where you then take the idea of Curse of Strahd, turn it up to 11, make it
yep.
silly, like invite everybody to Dr. Acula's mansion, and then
Oh,
instead of
oh.
playing Strahd, like or the vampire, like you lean into all the tropes at the same time. Then the
I
worst
gotta interject.
accents, the
Have you seen the movie with Ed Begley Jr. and The Fly? He was the doctor in Jurassic Park as
Jeff
well.
Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Transylvania 65000.
I don't
Gina
think I've
Davis
ever
was in
seen
it
it.
too. Oh man, you have got to go and watch it. It is so funny. Ed Begley Jr. has this little thing in the middle. It's a newspaper thing. They're sending them off to some castle in Transylvania, and Jeff Goldblum is like a serious reporter, and he's like, "I can't believe you're sending me on this assignment." And Ed Begley Jr. is like the editor's son, right? And he's a complete and utter buffoon. And the editor's sending them because somebody thinks they've seen Frankenstein, you know, as the monster, right? Using the name of the anyway. And Ed Begley Jr. is sort of like flipping through the sports pages of the funnies or whatever, and he says, "Frankenstein. I didn't think he was still alive." And Jeff Goldblum has the perfect comeback, which is, "This still alive? He was a book. He was a movie. He was never alive, you schmohawk." And I mean, the way that he delivers it has just made me. I still just thinking back on it makes me giggle. Um,
Schmohawk.
yep. And Gina Davis has a neckline that goes down to her navel. You've got to watch the movie.
Whatever happened to Gina Davis? I mean, I know she got old. Everybody got old, but
Hey, we got old. Like, look, there's gray in my beard.
that's why I don't have a beard.
Sure, that's why you don't have a beard.
Oh, and I can't grow a good beard. But
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I can't really grow a good beard either. It looks good on TV, but it's not real good in real life. It's mostly just me going, I'm too lazy to shave. My chin is way too sharp. My jawline is just too chiseled.
So how do you think one of those could go wrong? What would you try to avoid if you were offering
Um,
me advice?
the first thing is, again, it depends on your group. Like you have to tailor it for your group. Like
Mhm.
if you're playing with a bunch of crunchy players, then you basically do a haunted house episode where every room is just full of zombies, or you do like zombie survival, similar to the horrible, horrible thing that I threw at you guys in Curse of Strahd, where it's just like, you wake up in the middle of the night at the inn you're staying at, and the whole town is zombies, and you've got to try and figure out how to survive the night. Like survival horror works good for that. If you're doing something with a group that really likes to do the social role play thing, then I like Scooby Doo is an excellent suggestion. Some kind of murder mystery, or one of those Columbo things where the rich dude invites everybody to the island for, hey, it's a party and it's a murder mystery, and then they drop dead, and now you have to actually solve a real mystery.
So here's where I think maybe we're not on the same page. Would you not use a one shot as an opportunity like this? Because it is literally, it's going to be one session, one night, and then you're going to go back to playing the way you always play. If you had a group that was crunchy, would you not use this as the one time where you try to do something different? And if they like it, then you can
That's not.
bring some of that back versus if they don't like it, then it's an
Yeah, it was one
experiment
time.
and whatever, you go
Mm,
back to doing what you're doing. Because I would think the mistake would be just doing, you know,
more of the same.
more of the same.
I think like there's two ways you can go about it. I think is that you can take what you're normally doing, make it undead and spooky and turn it up to 11 or 11 and a half. Or I mean, that's a good idea. I never actually thought about it like that. But if you're going to do something that's different, you could try and make it different. Um, that could definitely go horribly wrong.
Oh, it could.
If you're trying to do role playing with people who do things like, my character walks up to the bartender and asks about any rumors, and asking them to, like, all right, well, let's speak in character and like actually talk to the bartender, and do a funny voice or whatever.
Mhm.
um, right, I don't think that there's a wrong way to do it, other than in such a way that it makes everyone around the table uncomfortable with it. It's one of those questions, I think, that the answers are simple or just not easy to execute.
Guess what?
Chicken butt?
There you go. I heard from Ian.
Awesome.
He sent us some pod bag material.
You've got mail.
All right, I got to read this whole thing because I think he was trying to make me feel better. Now, I warned him that the episode that we were releasing today, that we talked about him a little bit, affectionately, because we'd mentioned it in a previous episode, and he liked it. Like he enjoyed it. He's happy to play the part. But I think he felt bad for me talking about being jealous about him in Greece because he said, apologies for being away so long. It was a long haul to not have my questions answered by sage experts such as yourself. If it's
I
any
have never
consolation,
I have never been so graciously mischaracterized.
if it's any consolation, I cannot recommend Greece as a travel destination. So Ian's responsible for the hot takes here. It's
Oh,
basically saying, fuck you, Greece.
they don't smash plates anymore. They can't afford it.
Going against the grain of most travel writers, the food was bad. There was too many people, and the cost to get there just didn't add up afterwards. I feel fortunate that I can travel this way, but wouldn't do Greece again, to be honest. Now, he's probably just saying, "Oh, you were jealous that I was in Greece," and well, you know what? You're probably glad you weren't there, Shane. So this question is going to be directed mostly at you
Oh,
because I think you've done this, and I really haven't. Uh, Titled "Digital Nomads." For the better part of 2022, I have lived out of my backpack and worked with a laptop on any table I could find. Desks, kitchen tables, hotel lobbies, etc. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but did find it tiring after a while. It was hard to not have a place to call home for that long of a period of time. Have you done this type of work-life balance before? And if so, how did it go for you? If not, how do you think you would fare? Now, you didn't do this specifically where you were globetrotting, but you worked out west for a while where you were doing the back and forth thing a lot.
I did. And so what I was doing is I started off, it was 15 days at work and then 13 days off, which sounds freaking awesome until you realize that you're doing 15 straight 12-hour days. Which is strangely enough, from the coming from the Quinty area, having worked in the Quinty area up until that point, which I mean, I worked there for 20 years, give or take. Um, the amount of work that I was expected to do in 12 hours was less than what I was expected to do in 8 at most of the jobs I've had in that area. So the work actually wasn't all that terrible. I will say that the being away from home thing is really hard, and it sounds super soft when you say it, like, oh man, like being away from my wife, being away from my home
Mhm.
was the hardest part of that. And people who do that kind of work get paid a lot. And it's like when you're looking at it from the outside, you think, well, why are they getting paid so much? The reason they're getting paid so much is because it's freaking hard. You are uprooted from everything that you find familiar. Your support network is just gone, right? Like, is it's fairly common for men in our society not to have much of a support network anyway. Very few men reach out to their buddies and go, "Man, I'm just feeling a little bit sad today." Um, but there is still, like, there's still something, right? And when you're away from all of that, suddenly you realize, like, I'm literally on my own, surrounded by, like, 5,000 people in a work camp somewhere. But you probably, like, I had almost nothing in common with everyone I was working with. Uh, I didn't do cocaine. I wasn't interested in meth. I didn't play poker for my whole paycheck. I like, it was, there were a lot of really good people that I worked with. Like, don't get me wrong, but there were some people that it's like, holy cow, like your life is so incredibly different from mine. Like, I met some people who do that and have done that like their whole careers, and there were some really weird things, like what kind of car do you have? I don't own a car. I'm not in camp. I rent a car. It's cheaper. I don't have to pay maintenance. I don't have to worry about where to keep it. I rent it for 2 weeks and then I just turn it in, and then I don't have a car for 2 weeks. Um, so yeah, all in all, I would recommend it as a short-term experience. I'm not certain that I could do it for.
So,
I mean, the money was good. Don't get me wrong; it was great,
so
but I'm not sure it was worth it.
I don't think I ever asked, or we've never really talked about it. But what were like aside from the work? What was the after hours experience like? Like, did you have a small apartment while you were there, or did you have
It was
like
different
a
people had.
barracks type thing situation? Like,
Everyone had their own sleeping space.
Hmm.
That the world has moved to the point. I don't know if it's gone back to the old way now, but it used to be that like there were lots of places where like you were bunking up with six guys and you were smelling farts all night. Uh, it moved on from that because the competition for labor uh, got sort of stiff enough that they realized like we have to provide a reasonable living experience. So while I was there, and I was there for sort of the commissioning portion of a project, which means that they were like, double checking that all the pumps were installed and the seals were tightened up and that, like doing electrical traces and stuff like that. Uh, so people who were going to be operating the place weren't there yet. So I got to stay in what the operators were going to stay in, which was basically like a one bedroom apartment, right? Like you
Hmm.
got a queen size bed, you've got like a TV. They had satellite TV available for you. There was some Wi-Fi. It was really terrible, and internet that was spotty at best. The food was fantastic. Um, when I started there, it was every other Sunday was either roast turkey dinner or prime rib. So that was awesome. The nightlife was almost non-existent
Hmm.
because you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get ready to go to work for six. Uh, and then you're working from 6 until 6, and then you catch a bus back to camp. You grab something to eat. You maybe watch TV for an hour. Like there was a common room kind of thing, and they had a pool table and like a foosball table and that kind of thing. And there was you could get together and do a thing. About once every shift, we would have like a friendly poker game. Don't tell anybody. We did actually gamble for real money. It was a $20 buy-in, uh, and you were not allowed to rebuy. So when you were out of money, you're done. And round about midnight, if we were still playing, we would call it. But most other nights at like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, you're falling asleep.
Yeah.
So nightlife is almost zero.
So did you have anything that you would do sort of after work to make it feel like I mean, I assume you had your laptop, you were probably playing EverQuest all night, so probably didn't
I
make
was
much of a
playing WoW
difference.
at the time.
Really?
I was, and I mean, I never really got into it because I didn't have very many people to play with. I was on a different, like, I was literally like off enough from the West Coast people and off enough from the East Coast people that it's like I got nobody to play with. Um, I kind of gave up video games because you couldn't, like, I didn't want to. I sat in front of a computer all day. Like, what I was doing while I was there was scheduling. So I was
Mhm.
literally like, manipulating Excel spreadsheets all day. When I got back to camp, it's like, I don't really, like, my brain is fried, man. I'm exhausted. I want to, like, I turned on a baseball game and like, somebody's playing baseball. I don't care who it is. I don't really, whatever, the red guys and the blue guys. And I'm just going to doze off and eventually wake up enough to turn off the TV. I did have one of the things that I did was I called home every day,
Mm.
and that was important every day except the first day. I sent Cindy a text the first day I got there, and I'm like, I can't call you. I literally will not be able to not cry because it was emotionally really really tough to be away from home.
Mhm.
The other interesting thing though is that like when I got out there, it was the first time that Cindy and I had been apart from each other for more than 24 hours since we were married, and we had been married for 10 years at that point. So yeah, it was an adjustment. Let's just say,
Yeah.
if you're young and single, go do it. It's an experience. You will learn things. You will learn self confidence and self reliance. You will learn what you're capable of, and maybe see some of what your limits are. Um, but if you're an old married fart, don't do it. It's too hard.
I've often thought that there would be a way I could do it. Um, I think we've probably talked about it when we were talking about the housing market and buying houses and how much that terrifies me right now, but, I thought, like, if I made enough money that I could just buy a really, really nice RV and Tanya didn't have to work,
Hmm?
that, like, we could bounce around and enjoy things where I'm taking home with me.
Yeah.
One of the things with work is I mean, I'm a old, fat, out of shape dude, so I can't do what Ian would do, where it's just sit at a dining room table on a hardwood chair for 6, 8 hours with my legs crossed, or hunched, sitting even on the couch without like a table and just kind of hunched over a laptop or something. I could never do that. I would need to have some sort of even semi-portable environment that was mine that I could sit at with a decent chair.
Oh,
I think the closest thing I got to doing this, like in practicality, you'll probably remember back in the stream days when I was bouncing around opening up call centers in other cities. Like I'd fly out to Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, and stay there for 4 or 6 weeks. And
mm.
I did that a
It's a
couple of
very
times for I mean, it only lasted a month and a half, and then I'd go back 6 months later. Like it was not a regular thing. And we'd get a hotel room was basically what we'd have. And it'd just be me hanging out in a hotel room after hours. I was playing a lot of video games.
Wait, there's not much else to do unless you want to go out to the bar and try and get robbed.
Yeah, which is, not me at all.
No, and it's a similar thing. Like just that being away from home for some amount of time. Like the people who do traveling for a living, that's off. It's hard.
Mhm.
If you have a heart. I mean, if you're a heartless bastard, it's probably pretty easy. So let this be a warning to you. If you find it pretty easy, you're probably a heartless bastard.
Are you a heartless bastard, Ian? Now, to be fair, like he's been doing it because he's been finding new relationships and
Well,
flying
he's
to
an extrovert
California
as
and
well.
stuff like that, and go travel. Yeah, he's a special cookie.
I mean, if you can make friends in new places, it's awesome to do for sure. But I mean, that's always been really hard for me. So,
Yeah, but you got to talk to people. Ew.
gross.
Well, Ian, it's good to have you back.
Hmm.
I'm glad
I've been to
you
Greece once.
didn't have such a great time in Greece, apparently, but hopefully you found some joy in it. But it's good to have you back.
I've been to Greece once too. So of the three of us, only you haven't been.
I've never been to Europe really, like outside of Canada and the U.S. I've been to Cuba.
I've never been to Cuba. To be honest though, when I was in Greece, I was in diapers, so it's not like I can really say much about it other than I was there. There's pictures. I have proof.
Well, if you'd like to submit your Podbag questions, hit us up, podbag@nerdingundertheinfluence.com. That'll allow us to give you in a break or have the show not completely fall apart when he slacks off for a couple of weeks. Before we wrap things up, though, let's get into your parting gift.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
So over the last little bit, I've been diving into some web comics that I haven't read since the stream days. Some of them are still going. Some of them have disappeared. But one of the ones that I think deserves some attention, or at very least some kind of a shout out or some praise, is called Girl Genius. It is a storyline of more than 20 years now, I think. There are actual hard copy books that you can buy. You should. Phil Foglio is the artist, and I believe that he works on it with his wife. I never really pay attention to those kind of things. I just read the web comic, and it's super awesome. Uh, Lots of fun. Very interesting. It's a steampunk themed kind of a deal. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's
I
worth
have
a
not
read.
seen it.
You should see it. It's good.
There you have it. Girl Genius, the webcomic. Well, it's been good talking to you, man. Do you have anything
For
else?
sure. I need a refill on my drink, is what I need.
Well, let's take a break, grab a new drink. We'll do this all over again.
Sounds like a plan.